All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Windshield Time at Mountainland Supply. I'm Joey. I'm here with Brandon. We also have Spencer Shorts, our producer / know-everything guy. You won't hear from him, though, and that's by design. You don't want to hear from Shorts.
I want to hear from Shorts.
Probably don't want to look at him either, which is
That's fine.
fair.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about EOS. Now, a lot of you who have worked here for at least a few months should have already heard about EOS in some way, shape, or form, either a level 10 meeting or measurable scorecard, something like that. You should have heard something about EOS. But EOS is based on this book called Traction by Gino Wickman. The book is super compelling, and you should read it. It's a page turner. There's also one called What the Heck is EOS that's way easier
better.
to read.
Way better.
It's like the Cliff Notes version of Traction, and I am all about the Cliff Notes.
Feel like I'm in high school again.
Yeah. But Traction is, it's basically principles that help you run an entrepreneurial-based business. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it has a lot of different components that go into it. People component, data component, and we're going to talk about those as we kind of go through this little part of our podcast series. But really, today we just wanted to talk about the reasons why we went with EOS and why what we were doing before wasn't going to get us to where we are today.
Yeah.
That probably sounds about right?
Yeah.
So maybe Brandon can tell you a little bit about what meetings looked like before we went to EOS, and I'll expound on it.
I think Joey's asked me to do that because I think I'm probably the most vocal about our meetings before. Probably most of you have actually heard me describe them before, but back in the day when I first started 10 years ago, it was we had 4 separate companies, and we had 4 separate management teams, sales, accounts, or finance, just everything, all separate, doing their own thing.
They were Department of Redundancy departments.
Oh my gosh. And then what would happen is once a month, all of these teams would get together and we would go. I remember up at CHR, we had that big room that we would just set up the tables in a big square. And we did actually over here at Ag
MLAG,
too.
yep.
I remember that too. And we just put them in a big square, and there would be like 40 people sitting in this room, and it would last, I swear it was like 4 or 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember. And we would always talk about the same stupid things time and time again. Now, to the credit of our prior CEO, Brent Anderson, he was the one that was kind of driving that. Mm-hmm. And I think from his perspective, and it's interesting now being in that seat and seeing what, trying to say, oh man, now I can kind of see why he did what he did. What he was probably trying to do was just get some mechanism in place to be able to say, okay, how do we coordinate what we're doing here?
Yeah, he was trying to collaborate.
Exactly. Yeah. And nobody wanted to have anything to do with it, except he did. He saw that, hey, there's something better here. We can there's a lot more potential here, but we just all got to work together on this. And so that was in my opinion, that was his attempt to try and, okay, how do we all get rowing in the same direction? Now, one common thread that we had, there was actually 2 common threads, I would say. We had common ownership. So that was one reason why we would want to do it.
Yep.
And the second one is we all use the same ERP.
Yeah.
So the same software, which is Epicor Eclipse. And we're on that today.
Mm-hmm.
But we all did it. But how we had it set up, it was basically under one company, and we were running as divisions underneath that company, which was really chaotic and kind of...
It was a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It was a mess.
And one of the things is, for example, I remember on the finance side, if I wanted to change a control file, it would affect everybody. Yeah. Well, it might be good for my business, but it wouldn't be good for everybody else's. So those were the topics that we're trying to talk about. Sales efforts, there was, just coordination in that. But every month it was the same thing. So I got to the point that honestly I didn't find any usefulness in them.
Yeah.
And so
very little value.
Yeah, very little value. Thank you. And I went to Brent Anderson. I said, don't ever make me come to these again. I was like, I'd rather stay in my office and actually work until you get this fixed. And Brent, it was kind of interesting. He was always trying different things, different management processes, and then he came across EOS. So that's kind of what led up to it and what we were doing within our company and why we were looking at that. Now, by the time EOS came around, we were doing a little bit better we had started consolidating.
Yeah.
And so that also helped too with it. But that's kind of the background of what it kind of looked like before we really started EOS.
Yeah, it was borderline chaotic. It was organized chaos, but EOS really helps you define some processes, and it helps you line those out so that, like Brandon said, you're rowing in the same direction. The first thing that they have you do is build out what they call a VTO, a Vision Traction Organizer, and that's based around two roles that are at the top of EOS: the visionary and the integrator.
Yep.
The visionary is the role Brandon plays within EOS. He goes out and finds all the big things, and I think we've talked about this before, and I, as the integrator, take those, carry them out, and bring them to completion.
Yeah.
The VTO lines that out.
Get it done.
Just get her done.
Get her done.
The VTO lines that out so that everybody can see it, and then they can rally around it so that you all are going to the same thing. And then in the first few meetings, as you build this out for your company, you're asked to build out your core values.
Yep.
And that is basically taking your best people and then finding those attributes that you really value within them, and then you list those out.
Yep.
And we started out with probably 40, and we finally narrowed it down to 6.
Kill it.
Yeah, you keep, kill, or combine. That was an interesting process. And then you define your core focus, your passion, your niche, and then you start going into your measurables, your core target, your core picture, or your 3-year picture, and then your 1-year plan. And so all these things, like Brandon was saying, Brent was doing these things. It was just never organized in one page or one process like EOS helps you do it.
Yeah, he was insightful to see, here's things that we should be doing.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a backbone to it. There wasn't a process. There wasn't, and to try and explain that to everybody, it was really difficult.
It really took what was in his head and spelled it out for the rest of us.
Now,
intuitively.
I'll be the first one to tell you that when this was introduced to me, I kind of rolled my eyes.
Yeah,
and said,
it's one more thing.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
I'll give it 6 more months, and then it's just going to wash out.
Right.
And it didn't.
But I think the difference there is that it actually worked.
Yeah.
And you could see the fruits of it. And so then you're like, okay, well, yeah, I'll buy in on that.
Just like what you said, I found value in it.
Yeah.
And so then the level 10 was probably the thing that convinced me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Once we started doing our level 10 meetings, I was like, holy cow, like we could actually like get some stuff done here.
Yeah.
And we're holding people accountable.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. In those prior meetings, it was like, okay, Joey, you're going to go. Joey didn't do this. This wasn't Joey. But as an example, Joey, you're going to go do this. Then we'd come back the next month and be like, Joey, did you get that done? I didn't know that I was supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
And, and so level 10 was one of the best things because we actually wrote it down.
Yeah.
And the next week it was like, Joey, did you do it? Yes or no?
Right.
Well, I didn't know. Yes or no. So for me, that was really cool because we started getting things done.
Well, and there's built-in accountability and ownership.
Yep.
And it's you who are making that commitment to the group. So it's not the group saying, hey, Joey, you're going to go do this. It's, Joey, this is what needs to get done. How much of that do you think you can get done this week? And then you make the commitment yourself.
Yep.
And that's a process of learning as well, because at first you overcommit, and so then you overcorrect and you undercommit, and so there's that give and take as you're building that whole process out.
How long did it take us to like actually get some good rocks?
Oh, probably a full year.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
And just to be even to project out. I mean, this was a living document. To this day, it's still a living document.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We just had our quarterly with our executive leadership team this week. And we're looking at that document and we're still going over it and saying, okay, does this still apply?
Yeah.
Does this still apply? Do we need to tweak this? Now, when we talk about core values, I always joke, but we do ask the question,
Are we still,
do
these
these still
values?
apply?
Yeah.
And I always joke that we have them etched in a coin, so we're not going to change them. But
3 coins at this point.
but we do look at it, and it's a living document to this day. But during the very beginning, there's a lot of changes that were being made.
Yeah.
You don't see as many today.
Yeah.
Number wise, you might see some stuff, but the other stuff, that other core stuff that you talked about, our niches and our mission or our vision and things of that, our core values, we're not changing those right now, but we can. Yeah. If we ever feel like we start to deviate from that.
There are no sacred cows. That's what's beautiful about the whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah. So we're going to, over the next few podcasts, we're going to be talking about different aspects of EOS and kind of give life to them so that you guys can kind of understand the method behind the madness, because it is a lot to consume.
Yeah.
When you first start diving into EOS, it's a bit like, drinking out of a fire hose. Yeah. And we understand that. So we're going to try and make it a little bit more consumable for you.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would also just put a plug as we end here. If you are listening to this within the company, one of our employee owners, and you don't have a copy of this book and you would like a copy, reach out to us.
Yeah.
We have copies. We would love to get one in your hands, or what the heck is EOS? Mm-hmm. That's probably a better one to do. But if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to us or reach out to your manager or whatever. But we're willing to get a copy for you to read. Yeah,
there's a bunch of supplemental books that come off of this as well, like Death by Meeting.
Yep.
That's really it's a fable that they go into, but it's really talking about that type of meeting that Brandon was talking about that sucks.
Yeah.
There's nothing compelling about it. It's just going through the same grind every week, and it's talking about switching that paradigm.
Yep.
And having something that actually does make sense, that pushes you to be better. So there's a bunch of different curriculum that goes along with EOS. So if you guys do have questions, like Brandon says, reach out to us. If you want copies of them, that is what we're here for, is to get you guys resources. So let us know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we appreciate you guys jumping in with this and sharing a little bit of windshield time, and we'll do it again next week.
Yep.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hey, thank you.